So if Donald Trump thought that he was just going to walk into Judge Aileen Cannon's court today and be greeted as a victor with his ridiculous motion to dismiss on the grounds that the special counsel, Jack Smith, was unlawfully appointed and that the appropriations for the special counsel was also unlawful, and as a result, the whole proceedings are a sham and should be dismissed, I think Donald Trump and his lawyers were in for a bit of a surprise on Friday. There was a pretty lengthy hearing before Judge Aileen Cannon. She opened up her courtroom very strangely to kind of random third parties. I mean, not necessarily random. The Citizens United group got to walk on in the court and participate as though they were like involved in the case, even though they were a non-party who just submitted an amicus brief. Another right-wing group and another group that said this entire argument about unlawful appointment is absolutely nuts. And you go back to precedents spanning decades with U.S. v. Nixon, independent counsels, special counsels like this have been found to be acceptable, and there's a whole great deal of precedent. But it was interesting because Judge Cannon was very critical of this argument at the oral argument that the special counsel was unlawfully appointed, yet she entertained it and had this whole full day hearing about it, where any other judge, based on the precedent, and I think, and I want to get your take, Harry Litman, would have at most heard it on the papers, but more likely even sua sponte just like rejected the thing and not even entertained it to begin with. So I want to bring Harry Litman in from Talking Feds. Make sure you subscribe to the Talking Feds YouTube channel and the Talking Feds podcast, partnered with the MeidasTouch network. A very unusual hearing that it even took place at all. But then again, when she was there, she seemed to do the right thing. But should we be applauding her for doing like the bare minimum basic thing? Was she trying to do that as a way to repair her reputation with the 11th Circuit to look good? Or is this just showing that she's a loose cannon and inexperienced?
You know, maybe it's the broken clock theory, Ben, but it really does. Yes, she was somewhat cogent and aware that the law, volumes of it and years of it completely blow this argument out of the water. So what was she doing? The point you just made in passing is a real head scratcher. To ask amici to come in and present argument. I've literally never heard of it at the district court level. I've never heard of it at any level unless it's the government. Even the Supreme Court, they don't have amici just come in and make arguments. And there may be a clue in who these amici were, at least the two on the side of Trump, which they are sort of conservative, pillars. And it's certainly consistent with that very interesting story in the New York Times about people trying to get her to get rid of the case early on and her not doing it, that she could have been playing to a conservative vanguard in the making should Trump become president. But it was a case that didn't deserve the time of day, certainly not 3 extra friends of the court there. It has to do with the appointments clause and whether, the argument is, hey, Smith has so much authority, he's actually a principal officer, and that requires Senate confirmation. But I mean, this is so much water under the bridge. And if you think about her other rulings and her general strategy of not making rulings that would subject her to reversal, I mean, this one would be overturned in a skinny minute. So, yeah, she was rational when it came to it. I've become really jaded on the subject of Aileen Cannon. And to me, the indication that she actually can read the law sometimes and know it makes her other conduct throughout the case less, the big question, incompetence in the tank, and to me points more for in the tank. Anyway, no, I don't give her credit for actually being, somewhat cogent when it came to the hearing. It's more like, what the hell were we all doing there in the first place? That's the headline to me.
Let me give you this potential. An inferior officer special counsel Jack Smith or someone in that position would generally have to be supervised by the attorney general, and the level of supervision is part of a lot of right-wing conspiracies. Is Merrick Garland, the attorney general, really the puppet master behind all of this? Now, as an inferior
Joe
officer,
Biden even, right? Yeah.
and as the inferior officer, it seems sufficient for purposes of the precedent that just simply following the guidelines and regulations of the DOJ suffices to give you that inferior status without having to be micromanaged by the attorney general. But throughout this bizarre hearing, there was this one moment where Judge Cannon asked the lawyer for the special counsel's office, so what is the involvement in the attorney general, Merrick Garland, overseeing this? The response was, I'm not trying to avoid the question. It's Department of Justice policy not to answer that type of question, period. So we're not going to answer it. But suffice to say, the appointment of the special counsel here is consistent with the whole body of precedent. So if I was thinking where she was going, I think she wanted to perhaps open this up almost as a quasi discovery, maybe to kind of harp on that point and push that point. But, you know, my other theory is that she wanted to try to come off rational, even though the very presence of Amiki there in the first place and her entertaining this argument is very not rational. And then she also kind of sequenced this hearing with the hearing from special counsel Jack Smith to expand the the terms and conditions, rather, of Trump's release, to have essentially a gag order from Trump to continue to lie that he's the target of assassination. So she's going to likely not give the DOJ what they want there, so maybe she's just trying to sandwich these together and say, look, I did this and I did that. But the whole thing is very, very odd. I'll let you comment on that theory, but more to the point, though, this idea that the chief judge in the Southern District of Florida, like the chief judge, Judge Altanega, she had apparently, based on this New York Times report, told Judge Cannon when this case was assigned back in June, you should not be taking this case, recuse, get off this case, and Judge Cannon rejected that. Look, how rare is that to not follow the guidance of a senior judge, the chief judge, giving you that guidance as a new judge, the way Cannon was?
It's mind-bending. Okay, but I'll quickly clean up the other point you made. It's really intriguing, Ben, because much of what she's done has been to avoid, to give more information. This is really the original sin of the search warrant. She's, let Trump, which has been both delaying and also inappropriate kind of discovery on the United States. So that is an interesting theory. Quick point on the gag order is if you think she's going to deny it, that's technically conditions of release. And the denial of conditions of release is immediately appealable. And now I'm back to the New York Times, because a striking aspect of that story is it is everywhere. The Times as much as said so, that what she did here in thumbing her nose at the chief judge is gotten all around, and it's, I think, produced a lot of tongue wagging. And reading between the lines, I think you could see that the 11th Circuit would love to have the opportunity to bounce her from the case, and this could produce it if she actually rules and denies the gag order motion. Indeed, in this case, if she doesn't rule on it, I think there'd be a kind of possibility of a mandamus saying, this is serious. We've got emergency situations here. Look what's going on with Bragg in New York, but look what Trump wants to say. You've got to actually do something, Judge, and they bring it to the 11th Circuit. But to your question, man, I've been a clerk. I've known a lot of clerks. I've known some judges. It's mind-bending. When you become a judge, you leave your whole society behind, and your group, your colleagues, are the other judges on the court. And the closest you come to a boss is the chief judge, and any new judge wants to be well thought of by their colleagues. That's really what their world becomes. And this call from the chief judge, remember, was the second call. First, another judge, and I think we have to assume it was sort of in coordination with the chief judge, gave her a way out, saying it should be in Miami. There's no skiff here, which, by the way, there wasn't, and taxpayers have spent millions of dollars. And gave her a sort of face-saving way out. She thumbed her nose, and then the chief judge comes in and says, "Look, let's get real. After what you did originally in that misadventure with the search warrant, the optics are terrible." And that's a very forceful thing to hear from a chief judge, and for then to say, "I don't care, I'm not leaving, or I'm not giving up the case." And by the way, to take all of the case, not give the kind of work you normally would to a magistrate, to me says she's playing in a different game when it comes to advancement and respect. That game is, if Donald Trump gets elected, 11th Circuit or even Supreme Court, here I come. And if that means for now I alienate my colleagues in a way no other new district court judge would do, so be it. I thought it was a really significant and interesting story.
The chief judge also is a George W. Bush appointee, right. So is a right-wing judge who is the one saying you should not be on this case. And that's why you and I say, a lot of these things are not partisan at all. It's just following the law and doing what you're supposed to do. Our system is built on a lot of good faith and norms, and we're seeing that shattered with some of the people who Trump appointed, and Trump and this MAGA movement. You and I will do more hot takes on this and other topics. Everybody, make sure you subscribe right now to Harry Litman's YouTube channel. It's Talking Feds. Just search for it. They're on their way to 200,000 and 250,000 subs. Let's help them get there right now. Harry, thank you.
Thanks, Ben.
Love this video? Make sure you stay up to date on the latest breaking news and all things Meidas by signing up to the MeidasTouch newsletter at MeidasTouch.com/newsletter.